We have now looked at the most common parts of the Node.js API. The modules that we've looked at so far should get you pretty far with Node. However, there are a few other modules that I'd like to mention before we move away from looking at the modules of the API. If you go to nodejs.org/API, you'll get this page here, which is the API documentation. And as you can see, this is a list of all of the built-in modules that you can load. You can see some of the ones that we've looked at already, like events, file systems, HTTP, path, and stream, but there are a few others that you may find useful. So let's look briefly at these. One of them is the process API. Process here is actually a global variable. You don't need to load it in. And let's take a quick look at process from a Node terminal. So I'll go to Node, and you can see if I run process, you can see we have this object being printed out here. And you can use process to get any information you might need about the Node process that's currently running. So you can see we can do process.title to get Node, and we can do process.version to get the version of Node we're doing. You've already seen that we can have process.standard in and standard out. And there's also standard error, which is like standard out except for error output. Another one of the most useful features of the process module is process.argv, which is the list of arguments that a given Node script was run with. Let's create a simple script here, and we'll just call it args.js. And all I'm going to do in this script is console.log process.argv. It's that simple. And so now, if I call node args, you can see that what gets printed out is an array of the arguments used to call this script. So the first one here is node, and the second one is the file path. If I was to add, say, a flag like harmony, then you can see that that flag is another argument used in the calling of this script. This is great if you want to use some kind of input. For example, you could have a script that takes another file name that it might process. So for example, I might say, I want you to do something with my documents folder. And you can see that that path is passed as an argument to the file. And this makes it very easy to write Node scripts that can be used like pretty much every other command line utility. Other command line utilities accept flags and arguments, and so you can do the same thing with a Node script. Another part of the API that you might find useful is the OS module. The OS module has a bunch of functions here that are specifically for finding out information about the operating system on which Node is running. Let's come back to another Node prompt, and let's require OS. I can do things like os.type to find out that I'm running a Darwin system, which is what Mac OS is called. I could also do hostname to find the name of this particular computer. I can do os.platform to find out that I'm running a Darwin system. So type and platform are pretty much the same thing. You could also find out the architecture type by doing os.arch, and you can see I'm running a x64-bit system. We could find out how long this computer has been running if I do uptime, and we get the time there in seconds. I could even see how much free memory my system has by doing os.freemem, and you can see we get the amount of memory I have free in bytes. This would be more useful if you were doing some deeper level application stuff that might be different depending on the operating system you are on, or if you were writing some kind of application that displayed system statistics. However, like any good programming API, the Node API does give you access to these very base level features. If we look back at the list here, you can see there are a few others you might find useful. Node has some very basic assertion testing that you can use with the assertion testing library. If you need buffers, we have those. You can also create child processes with the child processes module. If you have needs for any kind of cryptography, like making hashes of passwords and that type of thing, you can use the crypto library. You can use HTTPS instead of HTTP if you want to use SSL with your servers. There are a bunch of other modules, as you can see here, that will be useful to you when you need those features specifically. But I would encourage you to bookmark this documentation. Come back to it if you're wondering if Node is capable of certain programming features, and I think you'll find that it can do pretty much anything you might want to do.